Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming, where today I'm taking a look at Elder Scrolls Online, letting you guys know if this is a game that you might want to check out based on your taste. So first of all, it's a pretty good looking MMO, and I do have to say that just like in the Elder Scrolls games, you can zoom in the first person, although the field of view is pretty narrow, so in general I tend to stick to a wider field of view. Now, why am I checking out this game? Well, this is a game that when it came out on launch, it was not necessarily very well received. It had some issues. However, the game has been out for quite some time and they have made a lot of improvements, and that's why I decided to check it out and let you know if it would be worth checking out right now. There are different editions of the game, a base game, a game that includes the first major expansion with the Morrowind territory added to the game, and overall there is a pretty big area and a lot to do. The game has been out long enough in order to have some stuff available, and I do like the look of the game overall. It does look quite a bit like you'd expect an Elder Scrolls game to look, but bear in mind it's not going to play exactly like the role-playing games. You have to remember this is an MMO and they can't quite make it exactly the same. Now you may notice some of these icons that are showing like resources and things like that. These you normally wouldn't see in the game. They are add-ons that I basically had put into the game, basically kind of like mods or things like that that give you certain more information or different UI or things like that. So why don't we go ahead and show off the combat a little bit so you can see how that works, and we'll talk a little bit about what makes this game different. That's what I really want to focus on, is there's a lot of MMOs out there, most of them play pretty similarly, but what makes this one unique, and are those things that interest you or turn you off to the game? So you can see that I don't have very many things. I have a hotbar down here with 5 different things that I can do, and then kind of like an ultimate ability I can do with the R button down at the bottom of the screen. Now I can, however, swap my weapon set at any point. Now I'm playing kind of a tank character. Now don't look at me for optimal builds or anything like that. I haven't really looked stuff up. I'm just kind of checking out the game. So I have one build, and both are using sword and shield because I am focused on being a tank. However, this is more the thing that I use commonly against kind of trash mobs. It's more kind of damage focused, and then this is more when I'm focused on tanking and blocking and taking damage and things like that. So you really have 10 abilities and up to 2 different ultimates that you can have available to you. It's not a lot, but what it does allow you to do is to play with a controller very easily. In fact, in many ways I actually prefer playing with a controller on this game. It's easy to swap between the 2 sets, different abilities set to different buttons, and I think it plays really well. Although if I do want to be in like guild chat or things like that, it can be a little bit tricky. So in general I play with a PC and mouse, but as far as just pure gameplay, this is not going to be bad on consoles. That's a big thing. It is available on consoles, and I do think the gamepad gameplay is done well. Now some people, you may be annoyed by there being a lack of abilities, but that I think is why, to make controller support much easier and make console support much easier. So I have a couple different abilities I'm going to go and do here. I'm going to get in there and then use kind of this area damage over time ability. So let's do a little bit more of a dot to him, and then let's go back in. So I'm playing with a character that has, you can see here, you can block, you can even interrupt certain attacks by doing kind of a shield bash. So the combat, really, one of the big differences in this game is that this game plays really where everything is kind of a skill shot. Everything is you actually have to hit. There isn't really tab targeting. There's something kind of sort of like that when there's multiple enemies in close, but really this is about, if I want to do this special ability, I can't target this person and do it. I do it and have to aim it properly, that I'm actually going to hit that person with it. So we're going to go flying in here, do some damage over time. And, well, if I'm going to swing or things like that, I have to be aiming at the person. I can't just target someone and hit ability. So that's something you're either going to like or dislike. It's something that I personally like, but that's going to be up to you. If you've played other MMOs, that's something to... There we go. There we were able to... I mean, we killed them with that shield bash, but we were able to interrupt that attack as well. So it's a lot more active combat. And at first it may seem like a lot. It's not really that overwhelming once you get into it, and it's really not that bad, and it's going to be up to you. You may like the classic MMO style, but you may really like the fact that you actually have to be more interactive and more actively blocking, more actively doing things like dodge rolling and things like that. So the combat itself, now this isn't very intense because we're going up basically against little trash mobs here, but bear that in mind, and that's one of the big differences in the game, is how the combat plays out. And it's something something that may be a big selling point for you is the fact that you can go in and let's go ahead and swap our loadout here. Let's do some stuff that's gonna, just to try out some new abilities, make us tankier, give us some healing when we're taking damage. We have an ability that kind of taunts people. We have just kind of a basic heal that I'm going to use here. So again, this is more if I'm going against bosses or things like that. And actually that brought up an interesting thing there. We saw that we've now leveled up an ability enough to be morphed. So let's talk about that and get into how the character design is pretty different in morphing abilities and things like that. So let's take a look at our character real quick. So we are playing a warden, and one of the interesting things about this game is it doesn't matter what class you pick. Pretty much any class can play different styles. However, there are going to be classes that are going to be more attuned to playing certain styles. The Warden is kind of the character I think they tried to make a jack of all trades, the easiest to play any particular kind. He's not necessarily the best tank in the game, but he can do it well, and I just wanted to try it out. Again, I'm not going to be showing off how to play the game really well, but just the basics of how it works. So you can see here that you get these points as you level up, these attribute points, and you can put them into your magicka, your health, or your stamina. In general, you're going to see a lot of character builds with maybe even all of their points in magicka or all of their points in stamina, and not mixing between the two, and almost no points in health. I've put quite a few points in health, not only because I am playing as a tank. Now, you can get a lot of armor and things that will upgrade your health so that you don't have to put a lot of points in it, but both because I'm playing a tank and because I have some abilities that get more powerful based on my health, I was okay putting some points into it. So let's actually take a look. So we have some active effects down here as well. Just like an Elder Scrolls game, there are certain things that give you boons. You can have one at a time, so I have the lady giving me increased physical resistance. Now, you can have these non-combat pets, that's one thing. This bear is kind of a warden thing, though, that if they have that as their ultimate ability, they can kind of constantly have this creature around. But let's actually get into the skills. There are a lot of different skills in the game, and first let's talk about racial skills. So as you play the game, when you start off and build your character, you're going to pick your race. Again, your race doesn't determine what you're going to play. Now, if you're going to play like a damage dealing sorcerer or something like that, then probably a high elf or a Breton or something like that is a better choice than, say, a Nord. However, again, you can play different styles, and basically your race is going to determine these passive abilities you have available to you. Now, as you level up, you'll unlock more of them and unlock more different things. So this one, increase health and recovery, max stamina and things. So in general, orcs can, one of the things they can be good at is tanks, but again, they don't have to be. Your race isn't super all important. It does kind of determine your starting area. Certain races start in certain areas and things like that. Although if you buy Morrowind and a game at one time, you'll actually start in Morrowind, but then you can go back to your home area to start kind of the main base story of the game. So there are also abilities you can get from being in the different guilds as well. I'm not in the Assassin's Guild yet. That's something I'll need to work on. The Assassin's Guild is not in the base game. It's kind of one of the smaller DLCs, but you do get it for free as long as you have the membership as well. So there is no membership for the game that you have to have, although if you do pay for the monthly membership, I think it's like $15 or something, you do get some bonuses like a full inventory slot for crafting materials, so they don't take up slots in your main slots. You can upgrade. There are people who sell for in-game gold. You can expand your inventory, but all of your crafting stuff is just in one place and doesn't take up any room if you have the bonus. So if you want to do crafting, that's a pretty big thing. So there's all kinds of other stuff that I've learned as well, but this is where we get kind of interesting. So we have armor, weapon, and class abilities are kind of the main ones. And again, we have passive abilities. Passive abilities are pretty big in this game, and active abilities. And, well, we are basically focusing on heavy armor. So as long as we have heavy armor equipped, we're going to be leveling up in heavy armor. You see we're 29. You can have, like, mostly one type of armor and then one type of the other two armors to level those up as well to try to get some of the passive upgrades. Each one has one active and then a bunch of passives as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And much like some of the older Elder Scrolls games, by doing things is how you upgrade things and be able to get more abilities. Now, you get ability points and things things like that, or these skill points by leveling up, also by collecting 3 of these kind of shard things in order to get them. There are different ways to get those points by completing missions and things like that. But you unlock the higher level abilities by basically having items equipped. So if I go to the weapon, I did two-handed for a little while, but I'm mostly focusing on a one-hand and shield. And again, you can see different abilities here. Now, what we'll want to look at, though, is you can see the explanation of these abilities, and you also want to focus on the fact that certain abilities basically get more powerful based on a certain thing. So Ransack, this basically is focused on making an enemy fight us, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah, taunting them to attack you for 15 seconds. So this is a nice ability for a tank to have. You can make a boss basically focus on you and no one else. And a lot of these weapon abilities go up based on your stamina, which is an interesting thing. Now, you may say that I have no points in stamina, though. Well, I'm not too worried about that, because this ability I'm not using so much for its physical damage. I am using it in order to taunt enemies. But if I go into my class here, you can see I have each class, depending on which you play, has 3 different categories of abilities here. And I'm focusing on some things that do damage over time, because I'm not focused on being a big damage dealer. However, I'm going to be in close, being able to do damage over time. So like this impaling shards or this swarm or whatever are things that can do damage over time as I'm standing in there close, and you've seen me use some of these abilities. This is that ability I've been using often to initiate combat that knocks people down. But you can see this is focused on Magicka. Now, here's the deal. As you can see, I have most of my points in Magicka or in health. And a lot of these abilities scale based on one of the abilities. So most players focus on one type of ability. If you want to focus on just weapon abilities, you can do that. And then, so a lot of these are going to be scaling with stamina. They use stamina. So if you put points in stamina, you're going to have more points there. However, if you put points in Magicka, you have more points in there, and those abilities will scale. So if I wanted to be a weapon damage dealing person, maybe I want to focus on my weapon abilities, and then the class abilities that actually scale with stamina. However, most weapon abilities use stamina. Most of these other abilities use Magicka. However, a lot of abilities have the ability to morph. So which was the one, I'm trying to remember, that I just got the ability to morph? Was it? Yeah, there we go. This Arctic Wind. So actually, we can check this out live. This costs an ability point to do, but once you reach level 4 ability, then you not all of the abilities, you can look at a chart showing which ones can online, but some of the abilities have the chance to morph. So we take a look at this. So this is our base ability. It basically does healing, and then you can see this one basically it'll have similar abilities, but then it has a new effect: heals a nearby ally or deals frost damage to enemies. Well, in general, I'm playing this game a lot solo. I did join a guild, and I have done some stuff with other people, but I do play it a lot solo, so maybe this is better for me. But if we do dungeon runs and things like that, that will be a better ability for that. So you can use a point and upgrade those abilities. But one of the things that this does is it also, some abilities, it allows you to change it, to maybe make it a stamina-focused ability instead of a Magicka one. So if you're focused on that, then you have more of those special abilities that you can use. Oh, there we go. I have the wrong weapon set here. More of those special abilities that you can use if you're using stamina build. So in general, you're going to want to be one or the other. I mean, you certainly can mix and match and put some points in both, but most players suggest focusing on one, because you can focus on those abilities and then basically have all the abilities that you're going to use, except for maybe a couple, be more powerful, and then you're also going to have more Magicka to, do Magicka abilities, or more stamina to do stamina abilities, and just kind of stack on that one thing. And then health as needed, just if you need just a little bit more, or if you're a tank, you might be more likely to use it. So that's kind of the main differences of how this game works. Is character builds are quite different. You're going to be focusing on having those special abilities, which one you want to focus on, and then they'll be leveled up by having them in your action bar. So here's the deal. You may notice down in my action bar that I try to have at least one of all of the 3 major types of abilities, or maybe a weapon ability or thing like that. Because if when you're getting experience, you gain it based on the things in your action bar. So basically, I try to have some of the, the frost ability, some of the nature ability, and some of the animal ability all active in both of my bars, so that whenever I do gain experience, there we go, we interrupted that attack, and we can switch up here again. I got stunned a little bit. I like this ability that allows me to basically heal when I get hit, and it's really pretty cool. So you don't have, again, as many abilities as some other games active at one point. Oh, that guy. And there also is a light and heavy attack, and heavy attack is interesting because it also gets you back some resources. So who is this game going to be for? Well, if you like the idea of much more active combat, then this might be a big bonus for you, in that you're legitimately having to focus on characters, having to do skill shots, having to block actively, having to dodge actively, and I keep forgetting that I had the other one on. So those are pretty important things, and it may be, again, something you really like or don't like, but if it's something that sounds interesting to you, then that might be enough to make this kind of an intriguing choice to try out. Also, the way that the characters level up and things like that, I personally find pretty interesting. It is a bit more like Elder Scrolls games by having things active. That's how you get points in them. I feel like, personally, it can also be somewhat restrictive, though. That idea that you're basically discouraged from having a mix, because by having more stamina or more magicka and focusing on those abilities, it's just much more efficient than trying to do a split between the two, because you're never going to get super powerful in one and maybe not have enough resources in a certain ability by kind of splitting those things up. So that is something to bear in mind. Overall, what do I think about the game? I think it's pretty solid. That bear is pretty tough, and I don't want to fight it by myself, so we're going to run away here. I think there are definitely some interesting and unique things as far as the combat goes and as far as the character builds go. This is a game that definitely wants people to experiment and try different things and not just have one set build. And you can certainly see you can do a stamina-based tank. You can do a magicka-based tank. Now, if you're going for damage-dealing magic, I probably would think you'd want to focus on magicka, but you can do different character styles in different ways, and I do see a little bit more variety maybe in this game than some other games as far as character builds because of that unique style. Now, there's a lot more to the game, as you would expect. There are runs that you can do together, that you can group up with people, or you can put yourself in a group finder as a certain type. And if you're a healer or a tank, you can probably expect those to go a little bit faster than if you're running as a damage dealer. There are more high-end things that you can do, and there are two different types of PvP combats. I haven't really done the PvP combat yet, but there is like a 4v4v4 kind of mode that seems pretty interesting, then kind of a much larger scale combat as well, that if you want to find more specific details on that, if you're really interested in the PvP elements, then that's something that I really won't be able to provide you in this video, as I haven't really done that. Now, another big thing about the Elder Scrolls Online that you should bear in mind is that it has a unique leveling system, in that basically no one, wherever you go, creatures will be leveled to you. So if I were to, go to a waypoint or whatever and travel somewhere, there aren't like high level areas or low level areas. There are tougher dungeons and things like that if you want to do that as a team, and lower level dungeons. There are more powerful levels of runs of each dungeon as well, so you can do kind of on the base level or the hard level. There's a lot of stuff to do, but wherever you go, stuff will be leveled to you, and that's something else you have to decide if it is something that you're going to like or not. Some people like the traditional, more difficult areas and things getting difficult as you level up, but some people may really like the ability that you can go anywhere and kind of do stuff with different level people in the same area. You don't have to wait until people catch up to your level. Something else you have to decide for yourself if that's something that interests you or makes you say you're not interested. But as you'd expect, it's a big game with a lot of stuff to do, with a few things that make it unique. There are crafting systems, and actually right now the active quest that I have up is a blacksmithing quest in order to build stuff. It is kind of interesting. You can deconstruct things, you can research certain items, and then that research goes up. And actually I can take you for a real quick look here at my crafting skills as well. So I've focused on blacksmithing, and then I can get materials every day from like a hireling, and there's all different kinds of things. And as you level up the type of thing you work with, then the materials you use in order to do your daily quests, and the more powerful materials you can use in order to build stuff. So all the things you would expect, and the things that make it different are that combat system and the way that characters level up. And if those things sound intriguing to you, then it might be worth a try. It is kind of nice that there is no mandatory subscription thing, although if you want to be a crafter, it is highly recommended, and you do get the smaller DLCs for free, not the big Morrowind one, but I believe the Thieves Guild and the Assassins Guild are both not part of the base game, that you need to either order through the store separately or have the subscription in order to unlock. And overall, it's a pretty good looking game. I really like the active combat system, but that may be something that you like or don't like. And while I think in some ways the character building system is a little bit restrictive, it definitely allows for some interesting things. I actually respect my character. At one point I was a stamina build, and then went to a magicka build because I did end up liking it better. It does cost in-game gold in order to do that. I actually don't even have a mount yet. You can get mounts for a certain amount of gold and then level them up, and it basically just takes time in order to do that as well. But if those things are things that interest you, the more trying to be like a traditional role-playing game combat without the tab targeting, and the unique way that you build up characters, then I suggest checking it out. It's a game that I've had quite a bit of fun with. However, if you are a fan of more traditional MMO styles as far as character building and combat, then this game I don't think is really going to offer anything to you. If you are a big fan of the Elder Scrolls game, bear in mind this does not play all that much. There are limitations because of it being an MMO. It does not play all that much. It's somewhat similar to the original games, and maybe not as much as you might expect. I know some people were disappointed by that, so bear that in mind. But it has all the trappings you'd expect and enough unique things that if those ones sound interesting to you, it might be worth checking out. Well, thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon.